Before we begin, let me ask you something. What if the person hurting you the most is the person you hear every single day? Would you still want that person in your life? Think about that, because the voice you hear most in your lifetime is not your parents, not your friends, not your boss. It's your own voice, and that voice can become your greatest source of strength or your greatest source of suffering. Today, we're going to explore the longest relationship you will ever have, the relationship you have with yourself. Hello, my friends. Welcome to Awake English Podcast. I'm Mr. Giraffe. Wherever you're listening from, on a walk, in your car, with a cup of coffee, or while practicing English, I'm grateful you're here. Today, we're talking about something that quietly shapes every part of our lives: our confidence, our happiness, our relationships, and even our dreams. The relationship we have with ourselves. It's the one relationship that stays with us from the beginning of life until the very end. And yet it's often the one we neglect the most. So take a deep breath, get comfortable, and let's begin today's journey together. Several years ago, I ran into an old friend. On paper, his life was an absolute dream. He was the definition of successful that society loves to celebrate. He had a beautiful house in a quiet neighborhood, a high-paying, prestigious job, a luxury car parked in the driveway. From the outside looking in, his life was flawless, perfect. But as we sat down for coffee, away from the noise of the world, the energy shifted. During a lull in our conversation, he suddenly became quiet. He stared down at his cup, and the mask of success just slipped away. Then he looked up and said something I have never been able to forget. "Dan, I think everyone likes me, except myself." Those 8 words stayed with me for a long time. They echoed in my mind for weeks. Everyone likes me except myself. It made me wonder, how many people out there are living exactly like that right now? Look around you. How many people are trapped in the exact same invisible prison? We live in a world that coaches us to perform. We work tirelessly to earn approval. We curate our lives for compliments. We chase those little red hearts and likes on social media as if they are oxygen. We burn ourselves out just to get a nod of recognition from our boss or a rare word of appreciation from our family. We have become professional hunters, hunting for what psychologists call external validation. Let's break that down. What does it actually mean? External validation means handing over the keys of your self-worth to someone else. It means looking outside of your own soul to determine whether you matter. When you live this way, your life becomes an emotional roller coaster that you cannot control. When someone praises you, you're on top of the world. You feel valuable, seen, and alive. But the moment someone criticizes you, or worse, ignores you, you crash. You feel completely worthless. Your self-esteem rises and falls depending entirely on the shifting opinions of people who are often just as lost as you are. But here is the dangerous truth about this lifestyle. External validation is like drinking salt water. Think about it. When you are stranded at sea and dying of thirst, drinking ocean water seems like the answer. But the more you drink, the more dehydrated you become. The thirst only grows hungrier, sharper, more desperate. That is exactly how praise works. No amount of applause, no number of promotions, and no amount of external love will ever be enough if you do not genuinely like the person staring back at you in the mirror. You cannot fill a spiritual hole with material approval. If we don't learn how to validate ourselves from within, we will spend our entire lives as beggars, asking others for permission to feel good about who we are. So, how do we stop drinking the salt water? How do we build a foundation that doesn't shake when the world changes its mind about us? To understand this deeper, we need to look at the language of psychology and self-growth. And that brings us to our first key vocabulary word for today: external validation. Let me ask you a question. When was the last time you thanked yourself? Not for doing something extraordinary, not for winning an award, not for achieving a major goal, just for surviving difficult days, for continuing when life was hard, for getting up after disappointment, for carrying burdens that nobody else could see. Most people never do this. We thank our coworkers, we thank our customers, we thank our teachers, we thank strangers who hold the door open for us. But we rarely thank ourselves. Instead, we criticize ourselves. We focus on mistakes. We focus on what is missing. We focus on what still needs improvement. In other words, we often take ourselves for granted. This phrase means failing to appreciate someone or something because it is always there. And sadly, many people do this to themselves. Imagine having a friend who supports you every single day, a friend who wakes up with you every morning, a friend who stays beside you through every failure, a friend who listens to your fears, your dreams, and your worries. Would you ignore that friend? Would you constantly criticize that friend? Would you remind that friend of every mistake they ever made? Of course not. Yet many of us do exactly that to ourselves. We become our own harshest judge. We forget that growth requires encouragement, not constant punishment. A few years ago, I met a woman who seemed incredibly strong. She was raising 2 children, working a full-time job, taking care of her aging parents, and somehow she still found time to help people around her. One day I asked her a simple question. "What are you most proud of this year?" She looked surprised. Then she laughed softly and said, "Proud? I haven't done anything worth being proud of." I was shocked, because from where I stood, she had done so much. She had survived challenges that would have broken many people. She had kept going when she was exhausted. She had shown up for the people she loved every single day. Yet she could not see any of it. Why? Because she had become so used to carrying her responsibilities that she no longer recognized her own strength. And perhaps many of us are the same. We become so focused on what we have not achieved that we forget to honor what we have already overcome. We look at the mountain we have not climbed, but we forget to look back at the thousands of steps we have already taken. The truth is, life is not only about achievements, life is also about endurance. Sometimes success is simply continuing when everything inside you wants to quit. Sometimes success is getting out of bed when your heart feels heavy. Sometimes success is choosing kindness when you are hurting. Sometimes success is trying again after failure. These victories may never appear on social media. Nobody may applaud them. Nobody may notice them. But they matter. They matter more than you think. There is an old saying, "Flowers do not bloom because someone shouts at them. They bloom because they receive sunlight, water, and care." Human beings are not very different. We grow best in an environment of patience, compassion, and encouragement. That does not mean ignoring our weaknesses. It means recognizing that improvement happens faster when it is guided by understanding rather than shame. So today I want to invite you to do something unusual. Take a moment and thank yourself. Thank yourself for the difficult days you survived. Thank yourself for the mistakes that taught you valuable lessons. Thank yourself for the courage to keep moving forward. You may not be where you want to be yet, but you are not who you used to be. And that progress deserves recognition. Perhaps one of the greatest acts of self-respect is learning to appreciate yourself before the world does. Not because you are perfect, but because you are human. And because the person who has carried you through every moment of your life deserves a little gratitude. That person is you. There is a conversation happening inside your mind right now. It never stops. When you wake up, when you work, when you make mistakes, when you look in the mirror, a voice is always speaking. Psychologists call this your inner dialogue. Some people's inner dialogue sounds like a supportive coach. Others sound like a cruel critic. Imagine making a mistake at work. One person says, "That wasn't perfect, but I can learn from it." Another person says, "I'm such an idiot. I always mess everything up." Same mistake, different inner dialogue, different emotional outcome. The words we speak to ourselves become the stories we believe, and the stories we believe become the lives we live. Think about that for a moment. Most of us would never walk up to a child and say, "You'll never be good enough. You always fail. You ruin everything." Yet many people repeat those exact messages to themselves every day. And after hearing them thousands of times, they begin to believe them. That is how limiting beliefs are born, not in a single moment, but through years of repeated conversations inside our own minds. Many years ago, I struggled with this myself. When I failed, I would immediately attack myself. I believed being hard on myself would make me stronger, but it did the opposite. It made me anxious. It made me exhausted. It made me afraid to try new things. Then one day I asked myself, if I spoke to my friends this way, would they stay my friends? The answer was obvious. No. So why was I speaking to myself that way? That question changed something inside me. Because I realized that my inner voice was not motivating me, it was bullying me. And there is an important difference between discipline and self-cruelty. Discipline says you can do better. Self-cruelty says you are not good enough. Discipline helps you grow. Self-cruelty makes you afraid to grow. One pushes you forward, the other keeps you trapped. I once read about a young musician who dreamed of performing on stage. Every time he practiced, a voice inside his head whispered, "You are not talented enough. People will laugh at you. Someone else can do this better." For years, he listened to that voice. And because he listened, he never shared his music with anyone. Then one day, an older mentor gave him a piece of advice. The mentor said, "Just because a voice speaks doesn't mean it tells the truth." What a powerful lesson. Many of us treat every thought as a fact, but thoughts are not facts. Thoughts are simply mental events. They come and go like clouds in the sky. Some are helpful, some are completely untrue. Imagine sitting beside a river. Leaves float past on the water. You notice them, but you do not jump into the river and chase every leaf. Thoughts are similar. Not every thought deserves your attention. Not every thought deserves your belief. One of the most important skills in life is learning to observe your thoughts without immediately accepting them. When your mind says, "I'm a failure," pause. Ask yourself, is that really true? Or is it simply a painful thought passing through my mind? When your mind says, "I'll never improve," pause again. Ask, what evidence do I have for that? Often you will discover that your inner critic speaks with great confidence but very little wisdom. And here is something remarkable. Research shows that people who practice self-compassion are often more resilient, not less. Many people fear that being kind to themselves will make them lazy. But kindness does not weaken us. Kindness gives us the courage to keep going. Imagine a coach standing beside an athlete. Which coach is more effective? The one who constantly screams, "You're terrible, you'll never succeed." Or the one who says, "That wasn't your best effort, learn from it and try again." We already know the answer. Encouragement creates growth. Shame creates fear. So today I invite you to pay attention to the voice inside your head. Notice how it speaks to you. Notice the words it uses. And if that voice has become harsh, try something different. Speak to yourself as you would speak to someone you truly love. Not because you are weak. Not because you deserve special treatment. But because you are human. And every human being grows better in an atmosphere of understanding than in an atmosphere of constant criticism. Remember this, the voice inside your head will become the companion of your life. Make sure it is a voice that helps you rise, not one that keeps you small. People call me Mr. Giraffe because giraffes have very long necks. They can see farther than many other animals. They can look beyond what is right in front of them. And sometimes, I think one of the greatest gifts in life is learning to do the same. To step back, to rise above our immediate emotions, to look at ourselves and our lives from a higher perspective. Today, I want to invite you to do exactly that. For the next few minutes, imagine that you are standing on a hill looking down at your own life. Look at the person you have been. Look at the struggles you have carried. Look at the battles nobody else knows about. And ask yourself, how have I been treating this person? With kindness, with patience, or with constant criticism? Let me tell you a story. There was once an old gardener. Every morning he walked through his garden. He moved slowly, carefully observing every flower, every leaf, and every tree. When he saw a healthy flower, he watered it. When he saw a struggling flower, he watered it too. When he found a plant damaged by a storm, he cared for it with even greater attention. One day, a young man watched him and became curious. The young man asked, "Why do you spend so much time caring for the weakest flowers?" The gardener smiled. Then he replied, "Because criticism has never helped a flower grow." The young man thought about those words. And perhaps we should too. Because many of us treat ourselves in the exact opposite way. When we succeed, we quickly move on to the next goal. When we fail, we stop and criticize ourselves for hours, days, or even years. We give our mistakes more attention than our progress. We water our fears more than our strengths. What a strange way to care for a human being. The gardener understood something important. Growth does not happen because something is constantly judged. Growth happens because something is consistently nurtured. Your mind is very much like a garden. Your thoughts are seeds. Your beliefs are seeds. The words you repeat to yourself every day are seeds, and whether you realize it or not, something is growing inside that garden every single day. If every morning you tell yourself, "I'm not good enough," "I'm always behind," "I'm too old," "I'm not talented," those seeds begin to take root. At first they seem small, but over time they grow into doubt, then fear, then limitation. Eventually they become stories that shape your entire life. But there is another possibility. You can plant different seeds, not unrealistic fantasies, not empty positive thinking, but honest and encouraging truths. You can say, "I am learning. I am improving. I have survived difficult things before. I can take one more step forward." Those seeds grow too. And little by little, they become confidence. They become resilience. They become hope. A wise teacher once said, "Be careful what you practice because you become what you practice." Many people think they are practicing self-improvement, but what they are really practicing is self-criticism. Every day they rehearse disappointment. Every day they repeat negative stories. Every day they strengthen the habit of being unkind to themselves. And like any habit, it becomes easier with repetition. But kindness can become a habit too. Patience can become a habit. Encouragement can become a habit. The question is not whether you are watering your garden. You already are. The real question is, what are you watering? A few moments ago, I asked you to look at your life from a higher perspective. So let's do that one more time. Imagine looking down at yourself as if you were looking at someone you deeply care about. You see all their efforts, all their fears, all their disappointments, all their silent victories. Would you tell that person they are hopeless? Would you tell them they are a failure? Would you remind them only of their mistakes? Or would you encourage them to keep growing? The answer is obvious. And perhaps that is exactly how you should begin speaking to yourself, because the relationship you have with yourself shapes every other part of your life. And every thought you repeat is a drop of water falling into your garden. The question is simple. Which garden are you watering? And more importantly, what do you want to grow there? Now I would like to share something practical, a simple exercise you can do in English. This practice can improve both your self-awareness and your English skills. It's called journaling. Journaling means writing down your thoughts and feelings regularly. Tonight, before bed, take a notebook. Write these 3 questions. Question 1. How am I feeling today? Example. Today I feel tired but grateful. I had a busy day, but I learned something new. Question 2. What am I proud of today? Example. I am proud that I finished my work even though I felt stressed. Question 3. What do I need from myself right now? Example. I need patience, I need rest, I need to stop being so hard on myself. Notice something interesting. You are not writing to impress anyone. You are not seeking likes. You are not seeking approval. You are simply having a conversation with yourself. And often that conversation becomes the beginning of healing. Many people spend years trying to understand others. Very few spend time understanding themselves. Journaling changes that. It teaches you to listen. If you're listening to this right now, don't let these words just pass you by. Today, choose one of these 3 questions and share your thoughts in English in the comments below. I'll be diving into the comments to read and connect with you. A few years ago, I sat next to an elderly man on a train. It was a quiet afternoon. The sky was gray. The train moved steadily through fields, small towns, and endless stretches of countryside. At first, we exchanged only a few polite words. But as often happens in life, a simple conversation slowly became something more meaningful. We talked about work, we talked about family, we talked about the different seasons of life. There was something peaceful about him. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. He wasn't trying to prove anything. He simply seemed comfortable being himself. Near the end of our conversation, I asked him, "What is the most important thing you learned in life?" He looked out the window for a long moment. A gentle smile appeared on his face. Then he said, "I spent most of my life trying to become someone else. My greatest peace came when I finally became myself." Such a simple sentence, yet so powerful. Many of us spend years chasing a version of ourselves that doesn't really belong to us. A version approved by society. A version approved by family. A version approved by strangers online. We learn very early in life that approval feels good. As children, we seek praise. As students, we seek good grades. As adults, we seek success, status, and recognition. There is nothing wrong with those things. But somewhere along the way, many people begin to believe that they must become someone different in order to be worthy. Worthy of love, worthy of respect, worthy of happiness. So they start wearing masks. The mask of success, the mask of confidence, the mask of having everything figured out. And after wearing those masks for years, something strange happens. They become so familiar that we forget who we are underneath them. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The train continued moving. Trees passed by the window. People came and went, but his words stayed in the air. I found myself thinking about all the invisible pressure people carry. The pressure to be successful. The pressure to look perfect. The pressure to keep up with everyone else, especially today in a world filled with social media. Every day we see carefully edited snapshots of other people's lives, their achievements, their vacations, their celebrations. And without realizing it, we begin comparing our ordinary moments to someone else's highlight reel. We ask ourselves, why am I not further ahead? Why am I not more successful? Why am I not more like them? But perhaps we are asking the wrong questions. Maybe the goal of life is not to become more like someone else. Maybe the goal is to become more fully ourselves. A tree does not compare itself to another tree. A flower does not spend its days wishing it were a bird. Nature grows by expressing its own design. Only human beings spend so much energy wishing they were someone else. The elderly man taught me something important that day. Peace is not found at the end of perfection. Peace is found at the end of pretending. The moment we stop fighting ourselves. The moment we stop apologizing for who we are. The moment we stop measuring our worth against someone else's life. That is where peace begins. Of course, accepting yourself does not mean refusing to grow. It does not mean giving up on your dreams. It does not mean saying, "This is who I am and I will never change." Growth is still important. Learning is still important. Becoming better is still important. But there is a profound difference between growing because you love yourself and growing because you feel ashamed of yourself. One path creates peace, the other creates exhaustion. One path is rooted in self-respect, the other is rooted in self-rejection. And eventually those two paths lead to very different lives. As our train approached its final station, the man gathered his belongings and prepared to leave. Before stepping off, he turned to me and said one final thing. Don't wait until you're old to become comfortable with who you are. Then he smiled and disappeared into the crowd. I never saw him again, but I have never forgotten his words. And perhaps today those words are meant for you as well. You do not need to become a different person to deserve peace. You do not need to earn the right to accept yourself. You do not need to spend your entire life chasing someone else's definition of success. Perhaps true freedom is not becoming more. Perhaps true freedom is finally allowing yourself to be who you already are. Not a perfect person, not a finished person, just a real person. A human being who is learning, growing, stumbling, and rising again every single day. And maybe that is more than enough. Before we finish today's journey together, I would like to invite you to try a small thought experiment. Close your eyes for a moment, if it is safe to do so, and imagine something unusual. Imagine meeting yourself as another person, not the version of yourself that appears on social media, not the version that smiles when everything is difficult, not the version that tries to impress others. Just the real you, the person who knows your fears, your dreams, your regrets, your hopes. Now imagine sitting across a table from that person, perhaps in a quiet cafe, perhaps on a park bench, perhaps in a peaceful place where there is no need to pretend. And as you look into that person's eyes, ask yourself a few honest questions. Would you enjoy the conversation? Would you trust that person? Would you feel safe with that person? Would you feel respected? Would you feel loved? Or would you notice someone who has spent years being criticized, doubted, and pushed too hard? The answer matters, because whether you realize it or not, you are already in a relationship with yourself. Not for a few years, not for a season, but for your entire life. Many people spend years trying to improve their relationships with others. They learn communication skills. They read books about relationships. They try to become better partners, better parents, and better friends. All of those things are valuable, but there is one relationship that quietly influences all the others: the relationship you have with yourself. It becomes the foundation beneath everything else. Think about it. If you constantly criticize yourself, you may begin to believe that criticism is normal. And when other people criticize you unfairly, you may accept it. If you do not value yourself, you may settle for less than you deserve. You may stay in unhealthy situations longer than you should. You may allow people to treat you in ways that damage your peace. If you do not trust yourself, every decision becomes difficult, every choice becomes frightening. You may spend your life waiting for someone else to tell you what to do. Everything begins inside, and everything grows from there. I once heard someone say, "The relationship you have with yourself sets the standard for every other relationship in your life." At the time, I thought it sounded simple, but over the years I realized how true it is. People who respect themselves often teach others to respect them. People who forgive themselves often find it easier to forgive others. People who show compassion to themselves often become more compassionate toward the world. The way we treat ourselves does not stay inside us. It spills into our friendships, our families, our work, our communities, and even our dreams. Perhaps that is why self-respect is not selfish, self-kindness is not weakness, and self-acceptance is not arrogance. They are the roots from which a healthy life grows. Imagine a tree with weak roots. No matter how beautiful it looks from the outside, a strong storm can easily knock it down. But a tree with deep roots can survive difficult seasons. It can bend without breaking. Human beings are no different. The relationship you build with yourself becomes your roots. And life will bring storms, disappointment, failure, loss, uncertainty. No one escapes those things. But when you learn to stand beside yourself instead of against yourself, you become stronger than you realize. You stop treating yourself like an enemy, and you begin treating yourself like a trusted friend. Perhaps that is the lesson at the heart of everything we have discussed today. You do not need to be perfect to deserve your own kindness. You do not need to earn your own respect. You do not need to become someone else before you are worthy of love. You simply need to remember that the person who has been with you through every success, every mistake, every heartbreak, and every victory is you. And that person deserves care. That person deserves patience. That person deserves understanding, because the longest relationship in your life is not with your partner, not with your family, not with your friends. It is the relationship you have with yourself. Protect it, nurture it, invest in it, and let it become a source of strength for the rest of your life. Before we part today, I want to leave you with one simple thought. You do not need to become someone else to be worthy. You do not need more success, more achievements, or more approval to deserve respect and kindness. You are already worthy. The challenge is not to earn your value. The challenge is to remember it. And every day, through patience, honesty, and self-compassion, you can strengthen the most important relationship in your life. The relationship you have with yourself, because at the end of the day, the voice that stays with you the longest is your own. Make it a voice that helps you grow, not one that holds you back. Thank you for spending this time with me today. If this episode helped you practice English, reflect on your life, or simply feel a little less alone, I hope you'll join our growing community by subscribing to Awake English podcast. And if there was one idea that stayed with you today, share it in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Take care of your mind. Take care of your heart. And remember, the way you speak to yourself becomes the way you experience your life. This is Mr. Giraffe. Thank you for listening. And wherever life takes you next, may you walk forward with a little more kindness toward yourself. See you in the next episode.